Well, good morning, everyone. And here we are again in our daily talk, The Changemaker's Way. This is 𝗺𝗶𝗽𝗀𝗃, your host. Today, I'm going to quickly just talk about something that I find peculiar in the USA. And it kind of still affects me today, even if I've already left the country and now back in Australia. And it's the kind of system that I found strange when I first got into the USA because the kind of system that makes people poorer, especially if you are not very financially literate. Now, just yesterday, I was looking at what in the US is called your credit score. And what the credit score means is literally what it implies: how good is your credit rating? And if you think it's got to do with not having debt or liabilities, you're wrong. Because initially, when I first got to the US, I thought that's what it was. Because let's face it, when you don't have liabilities, especially bad debt kind of liabilities, isn't that a good thing? And in Philippines, we call it utang. So if you don't have utang, that's a good thing. Unfortunately, in the US, this system of credit score gets people into debt, encourages borrowing money, encourages debt, encourages getting into credit. So the problem is that because I left the country, I don't know why my credit score has gone down. I only suspect it's because I haven't been actively borrowing money anymore in the US, because what's the point? I'm here. I still have a credit card, and it so happened that my credit card is actually, how do I say, in the positive instead of in the negative, meaning that I have more money than I actually owe, only because of that whole hoopla with Apple. I don't know if you guys remember, a few months back, I bought an laptop, a MacBook Air laptop that I wasn't happy with because the camera is just so poor. I had to return it, get a refund, and eventually there was so much drama around it. It took them forever to refund me, but the good thing was that my credit card company, I was able to ask them to take on the case and reported it to them and said that, Apple owes me. So they temporarily then credited me some money equivalent to the anticipated refund. So that eventually got all settled just recently. But it just means that I don't have debt. In fact, I have more money than I should have in my credit card. So I suspect maybe that's the reason why my credit score had gone down. But what's the importance of that? It's because if your credit score goes down and when you want to borrow money, especially for mortgage, then you're likely to get a lower or a higher rate of interest when it comes to paying back your mortgage. And it's not just mortgage, it could be anything else. So I find that really strange coming from Asia because we don't have that kind of system, and it's a bit strange. It just encourages people to get more into debt, and it makes it look as though it's a positive thing. It incentivizes you to keep borrowing money. It incentivizes you to continue to be in debt, and it does not differentiate between what is bad debt and good debt. And do you know the difference between good debt and bad debt? Well, good debt, if, for example, you're borrowing money for business or for an investment and you're expecting your returns to be higher than the interest payments you have to make. So, for example, you borrow money and you have to pay interest payment of just say 5%, but you're investing the money and your return is 10%. So you have that 5% margin or profit that goes back to you. So, however, there's a lot of bad debt that's also encouraged. Buying a car, Some people might think that's good debt. No, because the cars depreciate in value. Even buying, say, TV, I can't believe how, there are retailers that offer a payment plan of over 36 months just for a TV. Why? Why don't you just pay upfront for something like that? It depreciates in value. It doesn't do you any good to buy something that you can't really afford and then buy it on credit. Well, education is a good form of investment. You borrow money, have a student loan, and then pay interest on that. Well, that's good debt because then you can capitalize on your education. So in the future, you're able to transition to a higher paying job, or you're able to capitalize on your skills, new skills and capabilities to generate more, returns or profit or streams of income. So it's important to differentiate between what's bad debt and what's good debt. But the whole system of the credit score doesn't do that for you. It doesn't differentiate what is bad debt or good debt. It only simply encourages you to keep borrowing money so that you can continue to maintain your credit score. And of course, the assumption is you pay your credit on time, so you maintain a good credit score. If you're from the US, it might astound you that we don't have that kind of system in other countries. Well, unless I'm wrong, I don't know of any other countries that actually incentivizes you to get yourself more in debt. It doesn't matter if it's bad debt. So that's just an example of a system that makes the poor poorer, especially if you are not financially literate, if you are not as well aware of the ins and outs of the banking, credit, financial system, capital markets, and so on and so forth. I'll give you another example that I noticed over there where, the poor get poorer. Say you are in a lower class neighborhood, and usually these lower class neighborhood are people of color type of neighborhood. And what I didn't know was that if you're in those counties, the type of education that you have access to is also of a lower quality kind of education, and you don't have the choice to go to other counties and access their education if it's a higher quality education, especially in public school system. So then not only are you in a lower class neighborhood, you also get access to a lower quality of education. And on top of that, probably the crime rates are higher, who knows. So then you have less chances of being successful with a lower quality kind of education. And not only that, when you go and borrow money, let's just say for mortgage or for a house, and because of the neighborhood you belong to, the bank is likely going to charge you a higher interest of payments for your mortgage, which is not fair, isn't it? That you're already in a lower class neighborhood, and yet the interest rates you have to pay are much higher because they're mitigating the risks. And then because of that, you're probably likely to default on your credit because it's too high a repayment. And then a credit score goes lower and so on and so forth. Now you have to pay higher interest, and that just, digs you deeper and deeper into systemically being poor. In the meantime, it's the opposite case for the rich, where you're in a richer neighborhood, you have a higher quality of education, and the conditions in which you live, the environment, it probably creates more condition for you to be more successful in your school, and eventually in finding work or even setting up a business, and you become more favorable with the monetary system and the capital markets, and eventually your credit score is highly likely to even be better, and so it becomes an upward spiral. I've never seen such a system that really makes the poor so much poorer, and it's so hard to actually get out of that if you are in that situation. I sometimes see what they call systemic racism when it comes to financial matters in the US, and systemic poverty. I see that as more a system perpetuated by the upper class, top 1%. And if it's, if this sounds weird or strange for those of you who are not from the US, I can only say I've seen this firsthand. And I know of people who borrow money to buy things they don't need just so they can keep a good credit score. Like buy a new car when they already have a good car, just so they can continue to have a good credit score. Mind blown. Anyway, this is a bit of a rant, but also, I guess my call to action here is it's important for you not to just simply buy into the system, just simply because people say it's good to do this, it's good to borrow money, then you're gonna do it. Or it's good to buy a house, when actually it's better for you to rent, depending on your financial situation, depending on your location, depending on your lifestyle situation. Are you better off buying a home, carrying a mortgage right now, or actually just renting and later on reinvesting that money you would have used to buy a very expensive home and mortgage that you can sustain, maybe save that, invest it, and buy an investment property later on and continue to rent, which is something which I've done. There are tools out there on the internet that can calculate for you without you racking your brain to help you decide whether it's better to buy or to rent, for example. People say, no, you get a degree, get a job, buy a home, and that's how it's supposed to be. So there are a lot of systems out there, of beliefs out there that program us into a way of life that is not actually in our best interest. And sometimes we just have to challenge that and don't always buy into it. And that's what being a change maker is about. And that's what surrounding yourself with the right kinds of people and change makers is helpful and useful and a good resource for you. So for example, as I mentioned in my video yesterday, I talked about having a prosperity circle, because then that even you can set it up. You don't have to join mine, but having a prosperity circle with like-minded people is a good resource for you to give you a reality check. So hope that helps. And yes, I know this is a bit of a serious topic and can be a sensitive topic. It started out as a kind of a rant for me. I don't know, honestly, what to do with my credit score in the US now that I've left there, and I'm not interested in creating more debt or even getting into debt unnecessarily just so I can maintain a high credit score. I just think that's ridiculous. So I hope they change the system, and I hope eventually we all move to cryptocurrencies. I'm an advocate of Bitcoin, and there's a good reason for why I advocate Bitcoin, but that's a topic for another day, and it will be fascinating. Promise. So have a wonderful day and hope you got something out of this. If anything, let this just be a food for thought for you. If you haven't started your education on being financially literate or being financially savvy, this is a great time to start. Have a wonderful day. By the way, I have my webinar tomorrow, so if you want, I'll add in my description the registration if you want to attend. Positive energy to all of you, and may you lead a rich, rewarding, and meaningful life.